This is a special presentation from UFC Fight Pass. Step into our world at UFCFightPass.com. This is Extra Rounds. Extra Rounds.
It is Extra Rounds here on UFC Fight Pass. Hey, everybody, I'm TJ DeSantis. Where did I go? I'm not there. I'm over here. I don't know what's happening. I'm somewhere. This is what happens when things don't work on a Monday. Well, this is actually what happens when things don't work on a Saturday. But you got one of the best guys to ever do anything in the game with you. That guy's name is Yves Edwards. Yves, how are you?
I'm good, TJ, man. Just chilling, and glad that Monday's almost over, I guess.
I mean, you and I were supposed to, well, actually, let me rephrase this. We did do this on Saturday. We did do Extra Rounds recapping UFC 301, but I apparently pressed the wrong button. No one could hear us. It was a whole problem. And then you're kind enough to not remind me that you could beat my ass, and instead did something nice for me, and you're helping me out. You're making sure that I don't lose my job for ineptitude.
Man, pushing buttons is hard, but I couldn't do it.
I mean, here's the problem. I keep pushing the same buttons, but over the years, Yves, the buttons keep doing different things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah.
Modernization or something.
I know. So let's talk about it. I've been talking about fights for a long time. You've been involved in this world of fighting for a very long time, and it seems like a long time ago now, but still only about 36 hours since Alexandre Pantoja successfully defended his UFC Flyweight Championship against Steve Erceg. In the moment, we were talking about it. It was a good competitive fight. It was a fun fight. It was a fight that I thought was a little bit better than a lot of people thought it was going to be. Now, a few more hours removed, I see the narrative on this fight almost go from, wow, that's Steve Erceg. He had a great valiant effort against a really good champion to, oh, he fumbled the bag at the very last moment. Have you noticed that narrative switch here as we're talking on a Monday compared to when we were talking on Saturday?
I believe that could be the way it's changed. I stay away from social media, man. I can't take it. The internet has allowed too many people the courage to say things to people they would not say to them in an elevator.
That's true.
I kind of avoid all of that. I don't really read comments very much, those kinds of things. But I could see that happening because the way that fight played out, right? I had it 2-2 going into the fifth.
Right.
I think a few people had it 3-1 for Erceg, because I saw some people had Erceg win in the second round as far as some of the text that come through on the screen. But I had it 2-2 going into the fifth, and when Erceg shot that shot, got into that scramble with Pantoja, and Pantoja rolled for that knee bar, that whole series changed that entire round for me.
Yeah.
That sealed the round for Pantoja. He was able to get top position, maintain top position, didn't do a whole lot of damage, but did enough to stay there, and had pretty much the only control or any effective offense in that round. So I feel like that's where the bag may have been fumbled, but I'm not a judge, so I can't say that's the exact point.
And I get that, but I guess here's my issue. We've gone from Steve Erceg had a heck of a outing to, oh, Steve Erceg should have won that fight. And I have a hard time sort of getting behind the narrative that any challenger who's only in their, fourth UFC fight should have done something against a champion. Pantoja's a tough guy. This is a tough division. Erceg, yeah, definitely had a valiant showing and should be proud of what he did. But I don't think that we should have this narrative that he should have won. I think we saw a champion make the adjustments and ultimately do what a champion needs to do to maintain his position. Now, with that in mind, I did see one analogy be made online about how maybe Steve Erceg had his George St. Pierre, Matt Hughes 1 moment. Maybe he was good enough to be the champion, but not, just polished enough to actually take away the belt. And, spinning that forward in a positive way, we all know what George St. Pierre went on to do. I'm not saying that Steve Erceg's the next GSP by any means, but we very well could see Steve Erceg get back into a title fight within the next 5 or 6 fights inside the UFC and, walk into that fight being a favorite.
I 100% believe that's the case. I think Steve Erceg is going to fight for the title, potentially win the title at some point. I wouldn't say 5 or 6 fights is a long time. That's like 2 years inside the UFC, I think he could be back in title contention by this time next year, maybe late next year.
Even if it's still Pantoja, Yves?
Even if it's still Pantoja, he goes out there, stops a few guys, especially if he were to stop somebody who Pantoja had a tough fight with,
right?
As a number one, not necessarily as a number one challenger if he's coming off a loss to Pantoja, but the path would kind of be laid out for Erceg to beat somebody who just gave the champ a tough time out there. Erceg did a lot of good things in that fight, man. There was a few things that he could have done better. He walked Pantoja down often, but he didn't work behind his jab. I feel like if he worked behind his jab, that would have been able to negate a lot of, not all of it, but a lot of Pantoja's explosive forward movement when his back was to the fence. And that's how Pantoja, I believe, that's how he took the center back often and gave himself a lot of real estate to work with defensively. Being able to back up and move laterally and whatnot. I think if Erceg would have worked his jab on his pressure, he would have found some openings for that right hand that he landed pretty well, that right elbow that he countered with very often, and could have done some damage, maybe even split that cut open a little bit more, make it bleed a bit more, and get a stoppage by Doctor.
Did you see anything from Erceg in this fight that would lead you to believe that the pressure of being in a UFC title fight got to him, or did we see, anything maybe that was a knock against him, maybe be just the lack of experience in a high level title fight, not the pressure per se, but just, knowing what you need to do to maybe earn the judges' scorecards, if you will.
Yeah, not overtly. I think very subtly, and I think part of it is not working behind his jab because he has a good one. He knows how to fight, and he did some really good things in there. Especially countering with that right elbow at times. But a little bit of, I won't say it's relying on his wrestling because wrestling was solid. His wrestling, he's a what is he, a national champion? I know it's New Zealand, but still, you're the champ of a nation. That's a pretty big deal. But Pantoja showed that he can create some scrambles out of Erceg's shots that gave him a hard time at times. Sometimes Pantoja ended up on top. Sometimes Pantoja ended up using the scramble to create distance. Erceg got a few takedowns, but Pantoja ended up on top a few of those times also. It wasn't so obvious that he was not going to be able to land these takedowns. I think as he went towards the 4th and 5th rounds, we saw a better defense out of Pantoja. But at the same time, Erceg has a pretty solid and complete game. So looking to go to one of your strengths isn't such a bad thing. So I don't know, man. I'm proud of what he did. I think he could have done more, but it's just one of those small instances, There's I don't think Pantoja is this great, dominant, next level champion. I think he's a solid champion, but I don't think he's the guy who's gonna run through the division unless he makes some improvements in his overall game. And Erceg, I kind of agree with the Matt Hughes and that Matt Hughes GSP analogy, man. I agree with that. So let's see how it goes.
Let's talk a little bit more about Alexandre Pantoja. It was interesting to see him bleed the way that he did. We live in a time now, Yves. You fought in, basically every generation of mixed martial arts except, the early days, like UFC 1 days. But I feel like you have a place in almost every step of the evolution in MMA. There was a time where that cut on Pantoja's face, that's a fight ender. Ultimately he's able to continue, but were you surprised that cut that bad didn't have more of an impact on the output of Pantoja? Because I think, composure wise, he kept it all together and did what he needed to do to not let it really affect him.
I'm not surprised the cut didn't really affect his performance It was up in his hairline. Also, they were able to stop a lot of the blood from running. Um, the way he came out after, what was that? In the
Third
second,
round. Third round.
third round. Okay, third round he gets cut. Um, I wasn't when he came out. I thought they cleaned it up really well. And the cut was in his hairline. So like you're gonna have, especially if you put some Vaseline on that, it's gonna it there's not really coagulation, but the fact that all that hair is up there
Yeah.
and all that sweat up there, it's not coming down as thickly as it would say when Stevenson cut me. There's
Right.
no hair on my head at the time, and that blood's just flowing down.
What does that
It,
do to you, though, just mentally, when you can smell and taste and, like, you feel all of that blood? Like, just mentally, it's got to be sort of a reality check, no?
yeah, but like it's not getting in his eyes,
Right.
and in that realm, I think it's the reality check is I got to be busy, and that's what he did. He got busy, like he showed that he is a real champion. He's a true champion. He's someone that you're gonna have to go and take it from.
Yeah.
And having to deal with the cut and whatnot, he did a good job pushing back, fighting through it. But yeah, I don't think the cut like really hurt him because of where it was. I think if that's on the forehead or over the eyebrow, it probably is a fight ender.
When you get a cut like that on an opponent in a round, I know damage and the criteria of damage is supposed to outweigh everything, but should that be a foregone conclusion that that round is yours when you land a strike that the end product is that sort of cut?
I mean, we still have to factor in everything else that happens within the round, right?
Right.
How much damage is Pantoja doing if he gets takedowns out on the feet at distance? It visually, yeah, it looks like that, but you do have to factor in the other 4 minutes and 59 seconds.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff still going on. There's still a lot of action happening, and one cut doesn't dictate the damage of a whole round unless the round is pretty close to begin with.
Right. All right, fair enough. Let's talk about our co-main event. The King of Rio was back. Jose Aldo victorious. Really solid return for Aldo, one of the all-time greats, if not the greatest featherweight in MMA history. I don't know where you come down on that. You might lean towards Volkanovski. You might lean towards Max Holloway. For me, it's still Jose Aldo. I mean, the guy looked like he didn't miss a beat. And granted, Jonathan Martinez, a tough guy, number 12 ranked in the world, not necessarily a top 5 guy, but Jose Aldo, man, I mean, for me, Yves, he proved that if he wants to continue fighting in the UFC, they need to probably tender him a contract because he can do more than enough to hang with, competent, if not standout fighters still inside the octagon.
Yeah, I think Jose did a great job, man. He didn't look like a guy who's been out for nearly 2 years, been out and retired for nearly 2 years at that. The thing about retirement, I'll tell you right now, retirement is delicious. You know what I mean? I've had more desserts in my retirement than I had in my entire career, and my retirement has been about just over half of my career, but half the time of my career. But Jose Aldo, man, he came out strong. He looked good, and I think he took away Martinez's best weapon early in the fight. Martinez threw an outside leg kick, threw an inside leg kick, and then he threw one more inside leg kick that Jose returned a 2-3 with a lot of power and a lot of speed that I feel like maybe got in Martinez's head. He recognized the speed of Aldo and probably felt that power and was like, I can't find an opportunity to land this, because he did it again, not very frequently. He probably threw like less than 20 kicks. Definitely less than 20 kicks, probably less than 10 kicks throughout the whole fight because of the way Jose was responding to them. I think Jose's footwork helped a little, but that power that he was coming back with, man, and that speed, he looked just as fast as ever. And you know what they say, like power is the last thing to go, speed is the first.
Right.
And if he was retired and he still has that kind of speed, I think he can still be competitive at that weight. I'd love to see him come back, do some damage, and man, it might be fun. I mean, Jose Aldo versus Sugar Sean O'Malley could be a fun fight, man.
I mean, I definitely wouldn't be opposed to that. I think Aldo would have to, win some top 5 fights to sort of put himself in title contention. But if O'Malley were to slip it all and maybe lose a belt, like I feel like as long as those guys are active at the same time, like we absolutely have to have that fight, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's a video game fight.
Yeah, 100%. Now that O'Malley's fighting like the top of the division too, right?
Right.
We got to see that. Only thing I would say though, and Jose did look like he slowed down in the third, but he's a former world champion, held the title probably longer than anybody else. So he showed that resume, he showed that knowledge that comes with being that man, and he was able to get the take. He hurt Martinez late, got the takedown, and just did damage from the top like he needed to.
I'm curious, when you walk away, when you initially, and granted, Aldo was active, taking some pro boxing fights, but when you walk away and you allow yourself to get like fully healed, because they say you're always, feeling some sort of ailment when you're fighting at a pro level, when you're able to just separate yourself from active competition to where you get to feel the best you physically can, what does that do for your mental side of things when you get back in the training mats? Because I feel like Aldo's had enough time to walk away where the only reason he would have been, in any sort of, injured state coming into this fight would be because of this training camp. He's been able to be on the shelf for, well over a year from the MMA space. Like, is that when you start to sort of battle the demons of like, am I really retired? Because I feel like that's when these athletes go, wait, was that really my last one?
Some of that, and watching the current guys out there representing your weight class,
Yeah.
You look at some of those guys, and I'm sure Jose looked at some of those guys and thought to himself, man, I could beat these guys. I still have it, And if you're feeling good and that's in your head, man, then maybe you could go out there and put on a performance like he did, because he did not look old at all in that fight, man.
No.
He did not look like a retired fighter.
No, I'm curious your thoughts on Jonathan Martinez, obviously standing in front of Aldo when the final bell rang. He looked really dejected, really hard for him to sort of contain those emotions. He definitely thought it was going to be a career night for himself, getting his hand raised over a Hall of Famer and a legend. Did the moment get to Martinez at all? Did you see anything where maybe he respected Aldo a little too much?
I think the moment got to him a little bit, and not necessarily that he respected Aldo a little too much, just that I think that he, I think at the end of it, he felt like he could have done more.
Right.
He could have done a better job. He could have, he didn't perform to his best. I think that was the look on his face, and maybe some of that was because it was Aldo, in the sense of just the resume of the man standing in front of him made him a little more tentative. Maybe some of that was Aldo's skill set taking away some of the weapons of Jonathan Martinez. One thing I learned about wrestling was that my takedown defense got so much better when I learned the offense. When I knew where guys needed to get, where he needed his hand position, where he needed his head, and I could beat those positions. That changed everything, right? Same thing though with Jose Aldo. I think in this situation, Jose Aldo, he was dominant with leg kicks against any stance fighter. Open stance, orthodox to orthodox, all of it. He was pretty dominant with the leg kicks. And when you know how to place them, you know the foot position, you know the timing, you know all the rhythm for it. So he could have taken a lot of that away with just the knowledge that he has of how well to use that game.
Right.
So that's a big part of the game that a lot of people may not recognize, may not understand. But having a strong offense in one area can really help you develop a strong defense to that weapon also.
Yeah. So Aldo obviously gets his hand raised. He looks like he was the big favorite in that fight. He was not the favorite. He was the underdog. Let's actually take a look at the odds, courtesy of our friends over at DraftKings Sportsbook, see where the odds opened and ultimately where they ended up closing. Jose Aldo, he opened as a plus 140 underdog. By the time the fight actually took place, a little bit lower, plus 120. So still money to be made, though, on Aldo. And, speaking of underdogs, look at that big line there for Anthony Smith. Anthony Smith, he got bet down to plus 320, but he was all the way up to plus 425 at one point. He gets a first round submission over Vitor Petrino. DraftKings Sportsbook is the official sports betting partner of the UFC. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when you make your first bet of $5 or more. Download the app, use the code FightPass, and claim your $200 in bonus bets right now. Yves, we're talking about Jose Aldo, and I'm thinking about like what fights could lie ahead of him. I think it's probably a far-fetched one, but I still feel like we never got to see him fight Conor McGregor. It was like a 13-second quick knockout. Conor's huge now. He's not coming down to 45. I mean, he's definitely not coming down to 35. But dude, I would give almost anything I could to see those guys fight. I don't know what weight class it would have to be at, probably 55 or higher. But man, I'd be interested.
I'm not, because of the size difference at this point. I don't know. I think those guys went in two different directions when we talk about weight classes.
Yeah.
And also the first fight was enough for me. Not necessarily. I completely understand that Jose did not get to perform, but Conor got to him. He pulled out the sniper rifle, landed the shot, and it's over. And now just the weight disparity is just so much. There's no advantage that I see Jose having against Conor at this point in their lives.
I agree. Are you hyped for the Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler fight? I mean, it's finally happening. Knock on wood. Everything needs to still progress through their training camps and get them there on fight day during International Fight Week. But it seems like that McGregor buzz is starting to build as we march closer and closer to UFC 303.
I want to see it, man. At least one of them will get a win at this point.
I mean, it feels like this fight has had the biggest pre-fight build of any other I can remember. I mean, this has been like scheduled to happen longer than Tito and Chuck won.
Oh, you're taking it back. Yeah, it's been on the books for a while. I mean, they did a whole season of The Ultimate Fighter over this fight.
Yeah.
We still haven't seen the fight, and that season's been over for a while, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I'm just like, I am genuinely a fan of both of those guys. So, again, I'm just happy that let's hope somebody gets a win. It doesn't end in a draw. But
there's no draws in MMA. I mean, I guess there are sometimes.
Not unless you're fighting for the lightweight title.
It's true. Man.
It's a different time.
You said it, not me.
It was a different time.
Yeah. I mean, how many times has it happened in the lightweight title picture in the UFC? It definitely happened with Frankie Edgar and Gray Maynard. It happened with BJ Penn and Caro Uno. Is that the only time it's happened for the lightweight title?
I mean, that's 2 times.
I know.
That's more than anywhere else.
I know, especially when it happened back in like 2003. Like, draws never happened then. Because, like, if I remember correctly, Penn Uno 2, there wasn't even a point deduction. I don't even know how. Like, did someone get a 10-10 round? Like, who was handing out 10-10 rounds back at UFC 41? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't remember. Huh. Yeah, that's crazy. But there was one at the light heavyweight title, so, like, they're trying to catch up.
Yeah. I mean, they're all going to have to catch up. Two for one title. I mean, that's a lifetime of draws and championship fights at this point. So, I'm curious, though. Who do you favor? You favor Chandler? You favor McGregor? I feel like style for style, if Michael wanted to implement his wrestling, it could be a good night for him. But he's going to try to stand on the outside and knock him out. He's going to go tit for tat, throwing hands.
At some point, he will do that. And I really do think Conor should be the favorite going into this one because of that. Michael Chandler seems to be all about the entertainment factor.
Yeah.
And not the win factor. And I don't remember who said it. Could have been, I think it was Sarukian. It was like, you could have lost like 4 entertaining fights by now. And I feel like this might be the same thing. If Chandler does not act right, stay on his wrestling, do damage when he's on top. But I mean, Conor has pretty solid takedown defense. Not the best, but he did stop 1 or 2 of Khabib's. And I'm not sure Chandler is the wrestler Khabib is, but if Conor gets confident and comfortable in defending those takedowns, and Conor's ground game is pretty solid, man. He's no slouch on the ground either. So I think he has the whole bag when Chandler has a bigger bag in one aspect of the game. So Chandler's going to have to stay on his wrestling, stay focused, and do damage from the top. Don't let his nuts get on him, and try not try to be the entertainment factor or
Right.
the showman that he likes to be.
Yeah.
That could get you clipped when you're going up against somebody as accurate as Conor is.
Absolutely. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Moving forward with Conor's career, there's always going to be fights for Conor. Conor could lose 17 fights in a row. There's going to be a fight for Conor. Win or lose, though, what do you see the future being for Conor as far as, mixed martial arts is concerned?
Man, where Connor's concerned, you don't know. It's kind of up to him, right? That guy writes his own story, and I can appreciate that. There's nobody that I can think of who really is excitable when you think about Conor McGregor versus this guy, Conor McGregor versus this guy. But then again, I look at this differently. I see this from a different perspective, right? Maybe some people think that if Conor wins this fight against Chandler, him and Makhachev might be a good fight. Unfortunately, my boy Dustin's going to put Makhachev to sleep. But if let's just imagine in some alternate reality where Makhachev holds on to the title,
Right.
Conor McGregor calls out Makhachev. Like some people may be excited about that just because of the Khabib story.
Yeah.
But I don't really see a name until Conor makes somebody that name. Until Conor puts a target on your back at 155 or even 170, I don't see a name for him.
There's one elephant in the room. I mean, unfortunately, he doesn't have a UFC contract right now, but it is the rubber match with Nate Diaz. And I firmly believe we will get the rubber match with Nate Diaz, and I firmly believe it will be in the UFC. But
it'll happen in a boxing ring?
Nah. I mean, if it does, I'm not watching it. I mean, I'll watch it, but I'm not going to pay for it. I can go to somebody else's house who pays for it. I don't need to see it. I don't care.
Why don't you just like VPN it?
I don't know what those letters mean, Yves. I don't break the law. So I'll come over to your house however you come into digital ownership of that feed. I'll let you worry about that, but I'm not paying for it.
I could dig it. The Nate Diaz fight is I mean, that's still a big fight, it's still a big name, and I know Nate is not officially signed with the UFC. But he's retired from the sport of mixed martial arts.
Right.
You know what that means. The UFC still, I feel like they still have the right to first refusal. So
yeah, they'll figure it out. They'll figure
out a way to make sure that happens within the UFC's octagon. So I mean that could be fun. That could be a fun one.
Yeah.
I just at this point I don't feel like it's a main event. I feel like it's a co-main.
Dude.
But how do you put Conor in the co-main spot, right?
Conor McGregor could fight a grappling dummy and it'll be in the main event. So
yeah.
I guess. Have you seen these roll bots? They got these like grappling dummies that literally have AI in them. They won't tap unless you squeeze to like a certain pounds per square inch. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think Uriah Faber has something to do with that. And I'm kind of mad at Uriah for that because I'm like, you're giving away the secrets to robots, bro. I can't those things are coming after us. I don't trust AI.
I'm with that.
I grew up in the age of the Terminator, so
yeah,
Matrix. So I don't trust it.
We're getting closer and closer to those days every day. Even I am not the one. I will tell you, I am not the one. So.
I'm gonna figure out a way to develop an ion grenade.
All right, let me know when I can come over and hide in your house and VPN all the world's best shows, so we can ride out the zombie apocalypse together.
Oh man, I'm with it.
Maybe we can actually dive into the UFC Fight Pass library and relive some of our favorite Mauricio Shogun Rua moments. Shogun announced the UFC Hall of Fame class of 2024 on Saturday. You have a favorite Shogun moment?
Man, I got to go with my favorite Shogun moment being his win over Lyoto Machida. Lyoto Machida was I believe he was still undefeated at the time. He looked invincible. It looked hard to touch. hard to finish, hard to get to, and Shogun dropped him, then gets to the mount and stops him, and it was, I think that was the first round, wasn't it?
It was.
Second, but it was first round, right?
Yeah, I think it was the first round.
Yeah, I was really impressed by that, man. I thought Machida was gonna be a champion for a while, so I was really impressed by that. Yeah, Shogun, but Shogun's old school, man. Like he had so much fun stuff happen in Pride also.
Oh yeah.
It was like, yeah, that's the era. That was like part of the best era of the sport, if you ask me, as a fan. When I was mostly a fan. Mostly a fan and not as much of a participant. I wasn't fighting at the UFC level for some of Shogun's Pride era. Yeah, man, that guy was a whole lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, and people
soccer kicks in the knees to the head when he was over there.
Oh man, don't even get me started on knees to the head. I love knees to the head so much. I think we've come full circle. Wasn't that Machida and Shogun fight? Wasn't that the draw?
Was it?
I think their first one was a draw. Yeah.
Oh man, I don't remember that.
I think it was a draw for a UFC title.
Oh, that's been light heavyweight too. So light heavyweight and the lightweights.
That's what I'm saying. I think I'll have to look at the Fight Finder to double check that, but I'm pretty sure because I think it was at that fight. I think it was at the Staples Center in L.A. So I don't know. I'm old, Yves. I just start thinking about things that may or may not be true, and by the time I get to the end of the thought, it definitely happened, at least in my head.
I'm old, TJ. I don't even remember what happened yesterday.
It was Sunday yesterday, and it was the moment that I figured out we had to redo the show because of a technical issue. That's all I remember. But we did it. We did it.
I'm hoping I didn't say anything. Well, I guess it doesn't matter if I say what I said before.
Doesn't matter. That one went in the trash can.
Oh, man.
We did it.
I feel awesome.
Yeah, and this show was probably better than that one, so great job.
Hey, I'm in a different spot. I'm not in my house anymore. I'm in the gym. I got a breaker box behind me. So
I don't even know what that means. Like what you just said, a breaker box, that could be like a guy's nickname. It sounds terrifying.
I'm gonna nickname one of our guys a breaker box, but I mean, I'm like, look at that, Heritage Muay Thai. Like, I'm in the back room of the Muay Thai gym right now. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, do you need to go in the front room and beat some people up or what?
I'm about to. They keep walking in here.
Yeah. I mean, that's a problem nowadays. You can broadcast anywhere and people don't even know. It's like that, like the 6-year-old kid who just walks into his dad's office and they're like live on CNN. That's my favorite video of all time.
I've seen that once. That is funny.
Yeah, the dad's like just trying to move him out of the way. Like, just go that way. Don't say anything. Let's pretend no one knows who you are. So.
Hey, if my wife wasn't home Saturday night, my daughter would have done the same thing.
Yeah? I have a feeling our show's ratings would have gone up, though.
Oh, man. She's the best. She loves daddy. So
she's got star power. You and I, we're just old dudes talking about fighting in the way it used to be back when draws happened.
Next time we do this, I'm not even gonna close the door. I'm just gonna tell her, leave daddy alone. She won't listen.
No, of course not. I mean, that's literally why I have to rent a room to do my show not at home. Because my kid will just bust in and be like, let's play Call of Duty. And I'm like, I can't. I'm working right now. So, anyway. All right, I'll let you go impart wisdom on the next generation of fighters, a.k.a. beat up on some kids.
I appreciate it.
All right. You're my favorite. Yves Edwards. Appreciate you, sir.
Let's go, TJ.
All right. I got to go, literally. So let's go. Thanks for joining us. It's been Extra Rounds right here on UFC Fight Pass.